Good afternoon and welcome to Gold and Black Live. We'll talk a little bit of football here off the top of the show and do so by welcoming in Terry Malone, Purdue's new offensive coordinator. Brian Newbert down at the end. You probably know him. Malone, of course, the former or current tight ends coach. He was the tight ends coach last year and adds a new title to what you do here for the Boilermakers. We'll talk a little basketball about the game last night. We'll do that in segments 2 and 3.
Yeah, it was a great game last night. Great game.
A good one as Purdue got the victory against Michigan.
Against Michigan.
That you're a little bit familiar with.
Yes, and I was really excited to watch our big men play, and really took it to Michigan, and that was fun to see. And we actually hit some three-pointers that we were missing the other night, and so all things are good.
Malone, of course, Terry, the former offensive coordinator for the Wolverines in the early 2000s before you coached the tight ends there in New Orleans and let them catch the ball from a guy named Drew Brees a time or two or 1,000 times or so.
Yes, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to work at some really good places and work with great people, and Drew obviously was really a highlight to be able to spend the last 9 years with, and just a great person.
Well, just a note on how the show works. Of course, if this is your first time, you can send us in some questions if you have any for Terry, or if you have any about basketball. We'll get with those with Brian here coming up about 2:20. Thanks to our sponsors, as always, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow is a big day. Stay at HGI tonight. State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Visit Trent on the web at trentismyagent.com. Triple X Family Restaurants on the hill but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929, and Basham Rentals. They are leasing, as always, BashamRentals.com. All right, so you're the new OC. What do you want to see out of the offense?
Well,
the big question, right? What do you want to happen?
There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we have to make sure we put together in the right way, and what this opportunity gives us is a chance to really start over again and evaluate what went well for us in the past and what didn't. Try to keep up with the trends in football and how to make plays and score touchdowns. So right now it's really a process of our staff getting to know each other, evaluating what happened last year, and then making some good decisions for the future.
Is football different in the last 10 years since you were last an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, it certainly has. The tempo offense certainly has added something to it. Although, if you look at what Drew Brees did when he was here, there was a lot of elements of tempo that they had when Coach Tiller was here, and so that's where we really first started seeing it. They were substituting on the run and getting to the line of scrimmage fast and trying to keep the defense on their heels, and so really I think that was really where we first started seeing it, and being able to spread the field out certainly has changed things. When I was at Michigan, we were a power football team, and yet we had a West Coast style of passing, and so there's going to be some different elements to our offense that maybe it's not up with the trends, but are sound and have proven successful.
Coaches always talk about crafting their scheme to their personnel. Obviously, your first year in the program, both in games and practice field. What do you feel like you have from a personnel standpoint that is kind of that foundation that you're going to look at when you decide what you want to do?
Yeah, that's a big part of what the game is all about, is being able to put guys in to the right positions and give them a chance to be successful. And so if you look at our offense that's coming back, we returned 3 offensive linemen that are really good players. And I think we've got a couple of really good linemen that are going to fill in those other 2 spots. We've got a great young tailback, right, that we need to make sure he has enough touches throughout the day to give us a chance to make yards with. And I think we've got an excellent receiving core that we've got some depth at the receiving core that we probably have more depth there than we have at any other position. And then we got some really good, solid young tight ends that we can take advantage of.
That are well coached.
That's to be determined. That's determined on a weekly basis how well they're coached. But and the most important position, when you're talking about offensive football, is the quarterback position. And we've got some young guys that are great guys and great football players, and we need to put them in a position where they can be successful. I mean, we got to be able to really determine what they do best and feature that. And I learned that a really good lesson when I first got to the Saints. We were going to draft a quarterback to be our guy in 2006. And so we put a playbook together that kind of was built for what us coaches thought was a good plan and good communication. And then when we signed Drew, everything changed. We went back in, and Coach Payton had us change the whole playbook so that Drew would be most comfortable with. We used all the terms that came out of San Diego that he had been comfortable with, and changed everything because what Sean said was, and it's true, if your quarterback's not comfortable in this offense, then it doesn't matter how comfortable the coaches are. So we're going to do everything we can to develop and nourish and put our quarterbacks in position to be successful.
That kind of led into what I wanted to ask you. What's kind of your philosophy in terms of handling quarterbacks, especially when they're young? Is it a matter of keeping things relatively basic, finding their strengths and really emphasizing those things, or is there any sort of common denominator with how you treat quarterbacks in general, again, especially when they're young?
Oh, I think there's a big difference in having a veteran quarterback come back that was in his last year, and how you can add things in and on a weekly basis. I think with a young guy, confidence is as big as anything. And when you are confident is when you know what to do, and you have the ability to do it. That's when you build confidence. So it's our job as a coaching staff to put these guys in position to be able to do the things they can do, and then get out there and practice it enough where they feel that they can do it.
What are some of the things that you saw last year that you feel like is a good, at least first step to get to where you want to be as an offense?
We, obviously on the wins and losses of it, that's something that has to change. We got to win more football games, and I just really think that we're very close to turning the corner and being a really good football team. I saw so many good things that happened to us, and yet at the end of the day, we were falling short on the scoreboard. So I think that certainly has to be addressed. I think when we're preparing, the reason that we're preparing so hard and being so meticulous and paying attention to details is because there's just a little bit of difference between being a winning program and a losing one. And that's the change that we have to make.
We talked earlier about your experience with the Saints. How much is NFL experience applicable to coaching college? Obviously, you're not coaching the finished product. Obviously, you have a lot less time to work with your players. Is it the same thing, or is it partially helpful? Is it not helpful at all? How does it apply?
There's football. The football part of it really hasn't changed. I mean, the strategies that you pursue and how you want to attack defenses, that doesn't change all that much between college and pro. What changes is the mental makeup of your team, the relationships that you have with the players and the coaches. In the NFL, you might be coaching a guy that's almost about the same age, and he has 4 kids, and you've got 4 kids, and it's almost at times becomes a partnership as opposed to a player-coach relationship. And in college, I felt it right away when I got there that these guys are anxious to learn. They're willing to do everything you ask them to do, and so and we've got great kids on our team. So we need to do a great job as a coaching staff of making sure that they're doing things the right way and getting the most out of their ability. But in terms of the strategy, it really doesn't change that much in terms of how you play football. But in terms of the makeup of the guy you're coaching, that's kind of a big difference.
A lot of people at Purdue feel like you got to do something a little different offensively, be somehow innovative, or throw the ball 85 times a game, or something else. Are there things within what you envision of the offense that you consider innovative, or that philosophy maybe fits within what you want to do?
Well, when things aren't going the way you want them to, you're always looking for ways of changing, and a lot of times you end up looking across the street and seeing the neighbor's yard and seeing something that you really like in the neighbor's yard, and that's what we should be doing at our place, you know. And so that's where my wife always knows when I'm around the neighborhood, because I come back with ideas on how our house should look. And she said, "Well, where'd you see that?" And I said, "Well, I saw it 2 doors down." So, and that's really the reaction, and it's a natural reaction to say, "Hey, this isn't working for us. Let's go do what they're doing." And we're kind of doing that right now as an offensive staff, is really investigating some of the best college football teams and seeing how they win, seeing how they attack defenses, and getting some of their ideas, and then putting them together for our best plan.
Yeah.
There has to be kind of a basic foundation, right? Because there's so much stuff going on offensively,
Yeah.
not only in college football, but in football in general.
Right.
It would seem like there has to be some kind of basis. You can't do everything.
No, you can't.
Right?
No,
So
you can't.
just kind of how hard is it to pick and choose what you want to do and make sure those things fit together to something that can be workable?
That is really the magic potion on putting together a great offense, is understanding how much your guys can handle, understanding how it fits on a weekly basis. And you can't come up with a brand new offense every week. You have to have a foundation that you build from, and that's basically what we're doing right now. Is we're doing a lot of investigative work in terms of what we did last year compared to what we see out there as being ways of attacking defenses, and then putting together a plan that's concise and it's well thought out, and then we have to stick to that plan. And we got to get better at executing what we do than defenses are at taking it away.
Couple of comments here and some questions from Stacks, who asks.
I mean, there's people actually watching this
There are.
right now. That is,
Believe it or
Can you
not.
believe it?
It's mostly for Brian, I think.
Yeah.
But, Stacks says, "Congrats on the well-deserved promotion. Do you believe in order to be successful," and this sort of goes along, I guess, with the same line of questioning that we had, successful at Purdue, do you need a basketball on grass type mentality? Boiler Nation, he says, is starving for our next cradle of quarterback.
yes. Well,
Remember.
that's a very good point made by Stacks, and I still think this. I think even if you play a type of basketball on grass, you still have to execute the principles of football. And the one thing that will never change in football is that you need to be a physical football team. Even when Purdue was thrown all over the lot, they had an offensive line that was a physical bunch of guys. And when you played against them, you're going to get a bloody lip because they're going to hit you. And so that mentality can't change. We have to be a really tough football team, and that's what we're really pointing to. And I don't think you have to go out and do something that no one else has done. I think you just have to go out and execute at the top of your game.
And another question from Boiler Ball, who I assume is not the official Boiler Ball, but asks and says, it seems that under the former OC, Purdue rarely worked the middle of the field. Should we expect to see more slants and crossing patterns across the middle?
Well, that's a good point. And again, when things aren't going our way, you always can find something. But I don't. It didn't necessarily dawn on me that we never threw it to the middle of the field. But that certainly could be the case against specific teams. But you know what's important in terms of training quarterbacks, and when you're trying to get the ball to the right person, is that he understands what the defense is trying to do to us and recognize where the strengths and weaknesses of that defensive is and get the ball where they're not.
How much, speaking of quarterback development, how much interaction have you had with Tim Lester? Did you know him before recently? And you know, what are your thoughts on him as the quarterback coach?
Well, I'm afraid to say I'm old enough to have been coaching in the Mid-American Conference and coaching and when Tim was a player. So I was very familiar with him as a player. He was a great quarterback at Western Michigan and threw for a ton of yards. I had met him a couple times up to this point, but last month I got to meet him, have a great meeting with him, and he's an impressive guy. He is very knowledgeable. He's very passionate about the quarterback position. He is anxious to get our guys back on campus. He's like bull in a china shop right now, trying to stay calm and yet be on the phone with our quarterbacks and talking about some different drills and things that they can start working once they get here. But he'll be really good for us.
What's the most important thing to you in a quarterback?
Well, I think the best quarterbacks I've ever been around have been really tough guys. You got to have a mindset that really nothing can faze you, and you have to take that toughness, and it's got to have an effect on the guys around you. I mean, and certainly a quarterback's not a guy going to go out and drive somebody off the line of scrimmage, but his toughness on how he plays his position and his mental makeup has to have an effect on the group that's in that huddle. And I think of the best quarterback, and I've been able to be around some pretty good quarterbacks. I mean, we talk about Drew, and he's as fine as leader as I've ever been around. But I also was around Tom Brady, and he was a pretty good leader, and he's done okay since I left him. And but those guys all kind of have the same mental makeup, and they're very confident, and yet they can relate to everybody in that huddle. And I think there's a real special trait that goes with being a great quarterback.
What do you like about the 2 scholarship guys you have coming or here in the spring?
It's hard to say, isn't it? There's only 2 scholarship
Yeah.
guys, but I love these kids. I think they are 2 really special guys. They each have their own little niche on what they can and can't do, but I'm really anxious. I mean, I wish, we got a lot of work to do between now and then, but I wish we were starting spring practice right away, because I think that's the best way to, wash the taste out of your mouth about what happened last year and start fresh. And I know they feel the same way. Not long after this happened, that both those guys were on the phone and calling and saying, hey, I'm ready to go to work and ready to get this thing turned around.
Generally speaking, just with the way you view offense, would you rather have the 6'5" guy with the laser rocket arm, or would you rather have the athletic guy who can do a lot of different things, play outside the pocket, maybe run options sometimes? Is there one you prefer over the other?
Would I rather have Tom Brady or Drew Brees? You put me in a corner and ask me?
Well, I'd imagine you take both.
I sure would. I sure would.
But from a category perspective, philosophically, offensively, would you rather have the downfield passing guy, or would you rather have the athletic guy?
I feel this. I feel
You'd probably rather have both of them.
Yeah, you would. You certainly would like to, but a big part of our job is to be able to decide what they do best. And I just watched a Baylor football team win a bowl game without a quarterback. I mean, they played with 4 or 5 different skill guys that got behind the center, and they were able to execute well enough where they rushed for a record number of yards against a good defense. It wasn't as if they weren't playing, but they were playing, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to be inventive with what you do, but I think the whole idea of us really evaluating what our guys do best and going out there and executing. I think there's way too much credit given to the play calling. To tell you the truth, I've always felt like, hey, you call plays that you've practiced, but the key is that you practice them the right way, that you're prepared the right way, and that the plays you're calling, you've seen every single look that you're about to see, and your kids are prepared, and they go out and they're the ones that need to go out and execute those plays. So I think that's where we want to be able to win on Saturdays, is when we win in the film sessions, and we win in spring practice, and we win during the summertime, that we're getting better, and in fall camp. And then when the Saturdays come around, we can make Saturdays fun.
What you're saying is every single play call you make will be the right one?
There's one thing I can guarantee you, that it will not be the right ones a lot of times. But what I'm hoping is that these plays that I call, we've coached them well enough, and the quarterback is in tune with what he sees, and he takes care of the football, and our players make the coaches look good.
Just in light of what you said about Baylor, just wanted to confirm you're planning to play a quarterback, right?
Well, that's the plan right now, for sure. We got to give Tim Lester something to do.
Just sort of as you go into this process of of crafting your strategy going into the spring, just how open a mind you keep. Obviously, you take a close look at your personnel and you gauge things, but do you have to kind of go into spring and just kind of see what you have and then maybe figure out, it's going to be maybe a little bit organic in that sense?
A little bit. I think, one, you don't want to handcuff yourself and not allow guys to be able to blossom, because I don't think you can pigeonhole players, because there's such growth from year to year, especially with college guys. I can imagine it's even more in high school, but in college, hey, a guy shows up and he's a freshman, and if you put a tag on him because he can't do this or he can't do that, you don't allow him to develop and blossom in his career. And so I'm expecting to see a much bigger and stronger and more mature team than what we had last year. And hopefully I'll do my job and allow them to do that.
A couple of quick questions here, and then we'll get you out of here. A comment from someone who wants to know how well will the offense adapt to the strengths of the quarterback, whether it's Blau or Sindelar or whoever. Is that it sounds obvious to say, I guess, but a goal to be able to put those guys and take advantage best of their strengths?
Absolutely. That really that's the key to it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have more than two guys, but those are the guys that we have to build around. And those are two really fine young players to be able to build around. And so our job is to get a plan that allows them to be as good as they can be. And then our guys have to rally around those quarterbacks. And that's, what I said earlier about the quarterback being, the toughest guy in the team and being strong-minded and being the leader, that's all part of it, is that he needs to allow all the guys to buy into it and get everybody pushing the same direction.
And just one little follow-up there. You can't talk specifically about recruiting, obviously, but 2 is a low number. Seems like you'd want maybe a third scholarship guy in there. Is it safe to say you
I'm
guys
not
are
sure.
looking around?
Yeah. I just barely passed that NCAA recruiting test, so
You've
so
been
let's
out
not
of the
get
game
let's
for
not
10 years.
get yes 10 years. Yeah, no, I did pass on the first swing, but it wasn't by a whole lot. So
Just don't tell us specific names.
I will say this: that yes, we are. I mean, you gotta, in terms of just recruiting, you need to recruit the best players you can every year, but certainly you have to bring in a guy every year.
What's your early thought on what sort of role your tight ends can play in whatever sort of offense you're going to construct in the next couple of months? You know them better than anybody.
I really think that obviously it's after coaching for a long time that those guys are weapons that can give defenses problems. I mean, a lot of times defenses will have a great plan to defend wide receivers and backs out of the backfield, but all of a sudden a matchup occurs with a tight end on a defender that they can't cover, and sometimes defenses will try to go small and fast and have a hard time, covering a big tight end, and then some defenses will try to stay big and cover them with a big linebacker, and so anyway we got to make that matchup our advantage.
We'll let you go with one more. You're back in the college game now. Is recruiting, has that been the biggest readjustment for you? You'll be back on the road again, what, next week?
Next week we go to the convention this weekend, and that ends on Wednesday, and then Thursday we hit it. And we got a big recruiting weekend coming up that following weekend, and that's been a little bit of a difference. When the pro season gets done, you're basically done. I mean, there's a lot of football evaluation and certainly personnel evaluation of what you're doing, but everything's done in-house. And then during the whole, their recruiting time is when they bring all these guys to the combine. They bring them right to you, and you get to stand there and watch them walk around in their underwear. So, but now we got to go out on the road. We got to go find these guys, and what's really changed is the media, the whole information boom that's out there. There's really no secrets in recruiting anymore.
It's his fault mostly.
Yeah,
All my fault. I am your problem.
that is, there was a day when you could go out and recruit the 3 best running backs in one city, and none of them would know you were talking to the other guy.
Yeah.
They thought that you were that they were the only guy you were talking to, and now you go in, you just introduce yourself to somebody,
It's on,
everybody knows about it.
it's on Twitter within
Yes.
seconds.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
There you go.
you're forgiven.
Well, Terry, I appreciate the time.
You're welcome.
Good luck this season.
Thank you.
It's going to be a busy next few months, leading right up
Yes.
to spring. And spring will be here before we know it.
I know. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited, and I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm going to do the best I can.
That's Terry Malone, the new offensive coordinator for Purdue. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll keep Brian here. We'll talk a little bit about the basketball victory last night. We'll do that in just a moment. This is Golden Black Live.